If you think about the nature of being a chef, you physically have to go to a physical building, into a kitchen. So certain things like technology can take us so far, but there's a human aspect that hasn't changed that much. What you do with that still comes from here and the experience that you have here. You're not going to have an army of robots doing what I do in the near future. You use these tools to help you, to make you better, but they should never replace you, because technology does fail. The human aspect, the human intuition is the most complex thing in the world. What we have in here can't be replicated at this particular time. For what we do, the knowing without knowing, that sixth sense of when somebody comes to you in a restaurant and they have a dream of what they're going to be experienced, and I have to deliver that dream to them. It's finding creative balance to create something that they'll store in here, in the hard drive, so to speak, that will never leave them.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Perfect Bite podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Perkins. Today's guest is globally renowned for his gorgeous graphic plates that very clearly bring his British punk style to life. He has been making waves in the culinary world for decades, even earning 3 stars from the New York Times at the young age of 24. And despite his many accolades, from Michelin stars to an Emmy Award-winning HBO documentary to cookbooks and more, this incredibly accomplished person responded to my simple poll on Instagram asking who I should interview next. Just going to show you can be at the top of the industry and still hold on to kindness and accessibility. Please welcome renowned chef and owner of Crumpet Management, Paul Liebrandt. Paul, hi. I can't wait for folks to hear your story.
Thank you for inviting.
Of course, of course. I always love to take things back to the very beginning. Tell us when you first fell in love with food. What were your favorite foods as a kid? What really started to spark your interest?
That is a multi-layered question. All right, give me some room here to kind of...
Of course.
I'm British, so when I grew up, England didn't have this culinary scene it does today. So I went to boarding school from when I was 7. So I'm sure everybody's seen Harry Potter, but It was exactly, magic aside, but going on the train with all your friends and from 7 until 14, that's how I did school. So my earliest food memories would have been probably, I'm not saying these are good memories, I'm just saying they're memories, would have been probably winter in the mid-'80s when I was 7 or 8. Yeah, I must have just gone there. And I do remember it was cold and snowy, and we were all sat a la Harry Potter at long tables. And, a very British thing to have porridge in the mornings for breakfast. So but the sort of porridge where you can put a spoon and it doesn't move. It just...
and it just sticks up.
And the traditional way, at least when I grew up, was you take a big bowl of white sugar, big spoon, sprinkle it over the top of your porridge, maybe you pour a bit of milk on top, and that's the way you do it. Well, somebody in the kitchen thought it would be funny to replace the sugar with table salt. So we were 7, 8 years old. It just looked like sugar. So, 400 boys going, all at the same time. That was fun. And then every 3 months, I used to come home for a weekend. And my father was in the British military and my mother worked for British Airways. So they weren't there because they were, it wasn't 9-to-5 jobs. So I used to come home and I'd have an au pair sometimes and what have you. And where I grew up right in the central London. And if you know London, you know Gerrard Street, which is the main street of Chinatown in London. So you have Gerrard Street, which is sort of here, Chinatown. I grew up here. And if you go maybe 5 blocks like that, you had Soho, which was like the porn red light district. Not very big, but like 1 or 2 streets of London. And so I remember from the food point of view, and again, this must have been Christmassy time, you would go up Old Compton Street, you go through where they had like all these sex shops and bookstores and video stores and prostitutes like hanging out and you would go up like through a little archway, and there was Berwick Street Market, which the vendors would have like wooden carts that hadn't changed since like Victorian times, where they would sell vegetables and stuff like that. And there was a butcher's shop there, I remember, that at Christmas would get all the game, which is, right now it's in season. But I remember them having whole hares and all the sausages made there with like venison and what have you. And I do remember from a good food memory, Christmas time, I don't know if they probably don't do it anymore, but I guess when I was a kid, they used to take like an oil drum, like a big oil drum, cut the top off, fill it out with wood and burn it, and then put a rack over the top and like roast chestnuts, which again, probably they've been doing it that way since the Victorian era or before.
Yes.
And you would get them around like now and Christmas time. So the smell of like roasting chestnut, you get like a little bag like that, and it'd be like 1 pound. And the guy would put a little shovel in and go there, and you'd peel them. But I remember as a kid standing outside that butcher shop, a little bit of snow, there was Christmas lights. I could smell the chestnut roasting with the charcoal wood, which is a very obviously warming and delicious smell, and looking at all the Christmas items of like the hares and the venison sausage and turkeys and what have you in the window of the butchers, whilst, and this is the juxtaposition, honest to God, literally 2 foot to my left, you have prostitutes there going, all right, young man, what, oh my, hello, what?
Am I your Christmas present? Yeah.
And I never thought about it until I got to think about these things as we got older. When I was doing my first book, we were sort of talking about exactly this. And I'm like, I don't think it had an effect on me, but it was certainly a memory that sounds weird, but Dickensian-esque kind of like, you got the market and all the guys going, chestnuts for cereal, blah, 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 and then you've got, the hookers here, and I'm looking at venison sausages, and I'm smelling roasting chestnuts, and yeah, it was all happening a lot. And in Chinatown,
that's incredible.
Chinatown being there, I just remember walking up Chinatown and then seeing, because obviously it was Cantonese cuisine, mostly because of the UK with Hong Kong and what have you. So the roasted ducks in the window, the pork, I remember on the very corner, but there was, it's not there anymore, called China, a restaurant. And I remember wonton soup and the chef in the window making the wontons with this huge of the wonton broth. And I remember like looking at the window and making it. And it was, simple, but like some of the best wonton soup I ever had was there. They like make the wontons 10 minutes before you eat them. So it was like pristine. But these are like early food memories. Yes. Yeah.
Incredible. And I loved it because you took us really through the journey. I was there with you. I thought it Dickensian as well, as you were talking about the chestnuts and the market and everyone being there together. And I love this because I think there is still to this day just such a bad stereotype of what is food in London and what is food in the UK, where it's like just bangers mash or just like slop.
No.
But there's just a lot.
Yeah, but look, people said the same thing that haven't been to the United States. I mean, I have the fortune of being able to travel around the world and do what I do. And, the majority of people haven't been here. And so what they know is what they see. And what they see is pizza and burgers. And they think, oh, everybody's fat. Everybody just eats pizza and burgers. I'm like, no. But it's like if you haven't been to France, oh, they just eat cheese and snail. Well, they do, but there's a lot more to it than that. So it just depends on, obviously, context and your experience. But no, honestly, the food scene in the UK has grown tremendously. It's amazing. I mean, from when I grew up there and when I did my initial training there to today, I mean, it's quite literally world spot. And it's amazing. Yeah, the talent that you have.
Yeah. Tell us about those early days. So clearly food, even if you didn't realize it at the time, had such an impact on you and is part of some of your earliest memories and shaping that. What was really the aha moment for you that you said, I want to go into the culinary space, learn everything you can, and tell us a little bit more about some of those incredible folks that you started with?
Well, okay. So I didn't have any family members that were ever involved with hospitality, food, anything like that at all. So back in the day, a lot of it you followed in the footsteps of your father or mother. Or I did not. I was going to go into the British Army to the UK and follow in father's footsteps and do. My father was in the UK Special Forces, so I was going to follow in that line. And when I was 15, you leave secondary school, like high school at 16, but I was 15. So it was, okay, you're going to be a man. And so I went down, I did all the tests, and I passed everything. And they said, okay, great. When you turn 16 in 2 months, you can sign a 6-year initial contract to go into what they called, I was lining up to go into the parachute regiment, junior paras, it was called back then, which is like the Rangers here, airborne. And I looked at it, I went, 6-year initial contract? I'll be 21 or too old. So I don't know why, but I suppose he's Chinatown and what have you, something clicked in my head. And I said, I want to cook. And I remember why? Well, not me, but, my parent, my father, why? So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to start this thing of cooking. And if I'm going to do it, what I was going to do in that line, which is the military line with the elite tier 1, best of the best, I will go that line, but in the food world. So same mentality, discipline, highest of high standards. So that's what I did. So 15, I graduated high school, secondary school. I didn't go to college, and I went to work at a restaurant called L'Escargot, which is on Greek Street in London, which has been there since 1927. And had a 1 Michelin star restaurant. And I started my culinary journey then. And that was in the early 90s. That was hard. I mean, there were no human resources back then, to be honest. You just sort of rolled your sleeves up, dived in, and it was like fighting to stay alive every day. It was tough, really tough. But that's the way it was. Yeah.
I mean, very brigade style, like you said, but you were in just a different environment and inspired by that from your dad's career and what he chose to do.
Well, I just think, for me back then, like if you're 15 years old, this month you want to be this, next month you want to be that. So for most, it's like, okay, well, I was lucky enough, I suppose, to make a choice that was all right. It was no, but
it worked out well.
Most people don't. Most people don't know. They kind of, they career-wise, they're like, well, I like that, but I also like this. So I started doing that, and the system then was you worked in the UK, in London, and there were obviously not nearly as many great restaurants back then as there are now. And so I worked at all the interesting restaurants where the chefs had real personality, great technique, great food. It was more what I found interesting with the food rather than trying to build a resume. Exactly. It was more like I like the look, the feel, the flavors of, So that's what I did. I worked with, I worked with the great Le Manoir Cat Saison in Oxford with Raymond Blanc, Marco Pirouet, Richard Neat of Pied de Terre. I worked with some greats, and I went to France, to Paris, and I worked for Pierre Gagnère. Now, back then it was considered almost like a finishing school for a UK chef to go to France and work at like a 2 or a 3 star. So I wrote letters to everybody in my bad French, and I got no reply from anybody. And in London, one of Pierre's guys was sent over to London to just gain experience in London, Gregory. And I had mentioned, I'm like, I really, really like Pierre's food. Like it's, I mean, it is different, very different. And he made the call, and I went over, and I worked there for a year in Paris, stagiaire, so I wasn't getting paid. And then I worked in the Alps at a 2-star with Jean-Pierre Jacob, a 2-star chef, restaurant with La Bête Yves, because I've never seen the Alps, so I wanted to go see the mountains and the snow and what have you. So I did a season there. And then I came back to London, and I was searching, honestly. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
And this was 2000. And I was like, I have no idea. And I never planned to come to America, ever. Yeah.
Had you ever been before you decided to say, I'm just going to go to New York and see what
no,
happens?
I'd never been to New York before. No.
Wow.
No, I came over for a holiday vacation for like 7 days on my own, and something clicked. I'm just like, this is what I've been looking for. I went back to London. I quit everything, and I literally had $500 in my pocket and just moved to New York. No friends, no family here, nothing. And just started knocking on doors, and I had a work visa that I'd apply for. And yeah, that was it. It's not normal for most people to do that, but I did it, But I don't know, I think I just wanted to get out and do something that everyone else was not doing. And the track back then was, you did all those places that I had worked at. You went to France. You did your year and a half. You came back to the UK, and then you became the chef at a restaurant, and then you just replicated all those things from
What they were doing.
great chefs. But I looked at that, and I'm like, this seems a little not me. And I wanted to see something different. And America. Yeah, America was not on the radar, but thank God I made the choice,
I mean, you've been in New York ever since, so 25 years. What was the biggest difference that you were feeling right when you jumped the pond in terms of the food, the folks that you were knocking on doors and that you were saying, I need to come in here? And so what do you think that you brought in from the UK and from your experience in France versus also what you were seeing that they were doing already then?
Well, I think obviously with any situation, it's understanding the cultural differences. It's America. Everything's big here. Everything is bigger. People want bigger things, and that's America. England's a small country. It was a very different mentality and mindset, self-depreciating, making fun of oneself. America is not that. America is confidence. America is, we are the best. We know we are, right? As the UK was back in the 1850 to 1920, it ruled the world, So the contextual difference is, you can see in life, don't change that much. It's just, life is a circle, right? Just the same things keep going and coming away. So I had to look and adapt the way, as a young man, which is also hard when you're young, adapt to New York, the people that live there, what they like. So obviously that takes some time. And I just dove right in, and I'm like, if I'm going to do this, I will, no fear. So I think what I brought was the personality of what was going on, obviously, in London and the UK at that time with food. When I came over, the Fat Duck, Heston, what he was doing was, he opened it in 95, so it wasn't new, but certainly pretty amazing. Ramsay had sort of surpassed Marco as the chef in the UK that was going for his third star. So that energy, that drive was something that was born into, that was part of what I grew up in. Remember when I did my training, and what I grew up was in the mid-90s, which was the, rural Britannia, Britpop, and the culture of the music, the movies, the fashion, celebrity, all of that. Well, that's what I grew up in. And so it rubbed off on me like, okay, we have a story to say and a point of view that is valid, and it's great. So I think I brought maybe a touch of that to, in New York. And narrated through food, obviously. Yeah.
Yes. Again, if you look at any of your food, it stands out on the plate, just like you said, that Britpop time, very like punk pop as well, in your face. What was the reaction right away? Very quickly, you ended up earning 3 stars from the New York Times at 24. Yeah. Was it feeling like I'm just being Paul on the plate, or did you feel like there was some pressure to put something on there?
I think my naivete is really what to do with it. Like, I was 24, and it was, that was at Atlas, my first ever job of being my own chef, like being in charge. And at 24, let's just say my management skills were not as refined because I was 24. So
I've been there.
Yeah, yep. We all have. We're all the same in many, 24. Okay. So I just jumped in and
Yes. You think you know everything.
yeah, absolutely. So, I just dove in and I put a personality on the plate and people liked it. Customers liked it and they kept coming back. So I'm like, well, okay, I guess I like it. I'll just keep doing this. But how do you know? Like, there's no one to say yes or no. And the thing that I had to learn was how to balance to the New York crowd, was a very elite crowd, with what was going on to what they wanted. And that can be a hard one to balance. So it was, I just dove in and did it. Yeah.
It sounds like you really broke through maybe what felt a little stuffy at the time and made it fun.
Well, I mean, the food world is always evolving, isn't it? Every
Yes.
year we get older and then somebody's younger behind us who has a different idea, like music, like fashion, like anything. So, it was a time and a place back then that, I mean, there were no British chefs. There still aren't, really, in the United States that come over and do this. I mean, I love Gordon, but I don't count Gordon exactly. Yeah, it's different. It's different.
Yeah, it is. I was going to say it is different. I mean, he is known so, I guess, commercially,
Yeah, and
and that's great, but it's just different.
yeah, exactly. I don't mean like TV kind of thing. He's an amazing operator, and I love him. And I knew him before he became what he is today, and I'm very proud to see him do what he's. I mean, he's fantastic. But anyway, so I just added, I think, a different voice, a different, experience that diners in New York didn't have, and they went, okay, we kind of like this. So yeah, I mean, that's all we do when we open restaurants. We put a personality on a plate, honestly, and create an environment that you want people to come to and feel they want to keep coming back to. And it doesn't have to be so complicated with that. It's a hard one to do. Yeah. It's hard to do. It's not easy to do. But if you break it down, like, I mean, that's really what it is. You're not going there to kind of cure the world of pandemics or whatever. You go in for a nice experience. That's it. So I gave an interesting, different approach, I think, that people embraced. Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting now that, yes, we're still seeing it, but social media plays such a role in how people are developing menus.
Don't get me started on that.
Because if we look at your food, someone might also give it the description Instagrammable because it's so beautiful, but you didn't make it that way thinking someone's got to take a picture of it.
I look at them, I mean,
please.
When you've been around in any profession, but when you've been around enough, you get wisdom if you're paying attention, and you can see the world and people and how the psychology of human beings changes, but also there are things that stay the same. And I really do, life is a wheel. Good times are coming, but they're also going away. So are bad times. They're coming, but they're also going away. And life is like this. And it always will be, because it always has been. So if you look back, I mean, I'm talking purely from the gastronomic sort of foodie perspective, on my opinion here. What I was doing 20 years ago is now commercial. But when I was doing it back then, it was me and one or two others. And people were going, whoa, oh my God. Yeah, but it's become commercial now. And so I look, I'm like, it's not that it's a new idea, but if we go back way before my time to Nouvelle Cuisine, which was the 70s into the 80s, it was like the hexagonal black plates with like one piece of mange tout, one prawn, and like a dot of raspberry, which I always loved. The movie American Psycho, the very, very beginning, when they're in the restaurant and they're describing the food, and it's like rabbit in a lemongrass velouté with a white chocolate, and you see the plates. I mean, that encapsulates that mid to late 80s Nouvelle Cuisine, which is exactly the same thing as today. It's just, it's framed differently, but it's the same thing. It's like, opera is a good example. You have operas that are played today, which were playing 100 years ago. Same operas, right? But 100 years ago, if you and I went to see it, I would wear top hat, white gloves, have tails. We could go see it today. I wouldn't dress like that. The approach has changed. but the core of what we want is still the same. So if you look upon it in that context, the human aspect of it, it doesn't change that much what people want. So I think it's kind of amusing with the social media thing, which is just an evolution of how people communicate in a way, and what happens always when you have new cultures of how people talk, how people communicate, how they share. You get good and bad with it. The one thing I don't like about the social media impact with regards to chefs and our business, I think it kills creativity. I really do. I think
the algorithm. Everyone just makes the same thing.
Because people covet what they see. It's very true. People look at something and they go, I want that. Oh, I like that. And the more pretty it is, the more people get attention. But it's like a child coloring in a book with crayons. Follow the numbers and color in. It becomes very repetitive. Take all that away and still be creative and use this to think. That's very hard to do. It's not everyone can do that. So it kills that part of it, because people kind of repeat based on all the social media apps, which are good and bad. I mean, I think there's good about everything, but I think purely from a young chef today that wants to become and do and think, you have to think more. And yes, use technology to help, sure, but ultimately it's got to come from the mind. I mean, especially with like the AI bubble that we're in right now. Again, good and bad, but yeah. I'm British, so I can be so cynical. It's part of my DNA to be cynical and go about a lot of things, yeah.
I mean, like you said, good and bad and all of it. And I think a lot of your peers who have also come on to this podcast are saying, yes, it's great in terms of, say, marketing. Someone who's young, who's trying to get out there, they're reaching that way. But they come to their kitchens and those folks, just like any 24-year-old or so, would say, oh, great, can I be executive chef now? Because look at my work on TikTok. And someone saying, no, you need to show me in person too, that you can actually do this work.
Think about it. You just completely summed up. I mean, not just hospitality, restaurateur, but I mean, in general, the culture today of all business, of the younger generation, if you're in your 20-ish kind of age group, that seems to be the culture. But I'm telling you, there's no longevity to that. It's not, because things change faster now. So that might work now, but like 5 years from now, good luck. Good luck. Life is life, and certain things you have to have in life, no matter how things change. Yeah, the world is what it is, and technology can help to a point, but there is a human element behind everything that will never go away. You can't just say, oh, great, AI will take care of everything. Yeah, you want to see what AI is going to do? Really? Good luck. Going to put a lot of people out of work. A lot.
Right. There has to be the human element still.
Yeah, it's going to change. And then until it happens to you, you don't realize it. And then when it happens to you, you go, hang on a minute. Whoa, I'm telling you, you have to take it balance and think a little bit further out. And I'm not saying be smarter, but try and have a bit of wisdom and look at past things that happened in the past. I mean, look, throughout human existence, whenever technology changes the world that we live in, it's amazing that we're doing a podcast. We're talking about this right now. Yesterday, I was talking about this and saying, you know what the biggest industry in the world in, what was it, 1900, 1905, 1895, around that time? You know what the biggest industry in the whole world was?
I'm trying to think. I mean, Industrial Revolution, thinking manufacturing of some kind? Or was it the print industry? Whaling.
Because they used whaling for, lighting and
oil.
Until petrochemicals became widely available and used for an electricity with Tesla and Con Ed and what have you, became available on a bigger basis. It literally, like, the whole wearing thing stopped in a year and a half. Like, wiped out, done, finished. Like New York City.
Incredible.
Like New York City, for example. You know all the brownstones? You know, they have the stairs that go up like this. You know why they were built like that, right?
No, actually, I don't.
Because when they were all built before the motor vehicle, everybody traveled around on horses, and the amount of horse shit everywhere, like mountains of horse shit. Because otherwise, how you either walked or
Right.
you went on a bicycle before the car, or you were on a horse, and most people had a carriage and a horse, and right. But the horse is shit everywhere. So you had mountains of shit. So they built up like that so you could wipe your feet and go up. And until Henry Ford came along and made the automobile available to a bigger, it wiped out the horse trade, like, again, in 2-3 years, gone, everything.
Overnight.
So if you think about things in life like that, you know, things change, sure. So you've got to think to the future of whaling. Yeah, there's plenty of whales on the ocean. People need to light with all the whale blubber, gas. Yep. Things change. That's all I'm saying.
I'm interested to see, too, what is essentially post-AI after all of this. I mean, morning you and I are recording, woke up this morning and $10 million were put into a hospitality tech platform that's using AI in some level, but it's helping essentially reduce pen and paper in terms of CRMs, plus the marketing that you've seen so long for retailers, and actually being able to retarget folks and know who the heck are actually sitting in these seats and how can we get them to come back time after time.
Yeah.
So again, great uses, but we're talking tech and we're talking restaurants, and the folks I've worked with or even talked to on here, everyone just says like, yes, I'm building this, but when you're selling to actual restaurateurs and owners such as yourself that you have been, it's, why do I need another one of these? Everything is so disjointed right now. So that's also the future I'm hoping we get to, is everyone's eventually just plays well together. Platforms become so much more seamless from that side.
You know, if you look 25 years ago, there was the big dot-com crash in 2000, but that was like the bubble of the internet as we know it today. Okay, so look back and see, I mean, that was the internet as a whole. What happened after that? Did the internet stop? What happened? The bigger players stayed on, refined, and that's where we are today. AI is very much the same thing. There's not going to be one person, there never is. But, you know, whenever anything is new, you always got people elbowing to get to the front of the line. So, yeah, I think technology can obviously be very helpful, absolutely. But I think right now there's a lot of unknowns out there of exactly how to use it in the best possible way. People are using it because they're using it, but how can you know what exactly it's doing? It's like when you put out like a marketing campaign, as we've done many times, and put out a press release. I mean, how do you quantify who exactly is coming to you based off of what you? It's a little gray area. You don't know exactly because no one's filling out a questionnaire or going, I got the press. Yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, you don't know exactly. You can guesstimate. So right now, a similar thing with the AI. You've got so many people putting out a lot of things, but it will refine itself as it always does. Yeah.
Definitely. So I want to take that topic and talk about what you're doing here today. So, of course, you had your own past restaurants after working for others, Corton, the Elm, and eventually you said, I want to be in a consultancy role and help others start their own restaurants as well as grow them and make them into better entities. What inspired you really to start Crumpet Management? Where is it today? And when we are talking about things, say, along restaurant tech and different methods here, what are you really seeing as a theme that everyone that you're working with really needs help with right now? Multiple questions in one.
Okay. Well, I will clarify that, you know, I do a lot more of the consultancy. I have restaurants, but they're just not in New York.
Yes.
They're in Asia and what have you. So, honestly, pandemic, you know, hit New York and well, the whole world, but hit New York pretty hard. Our industry, obviously. I took a pause because I had a space. I was going to open 2021. So not that long ago, I was going to open But I took a pause on not knowing, like everyone else, exactly what was going to happen. So it's not like I haven't given up on restaurants, not at all. I've been doing a lot of consultancy, and we do licensing deals, all that kind of stuff with a lot of people outside of New York City. So it's multifaceted, I guess is what I'm saying. What I see varies very differently depending on the world where you are. AI is obviously a big one. I would say it's not necessarily a technology or a platform or that people are asking about. It's more general than that, honestly. A lot of it to do with marketing, a lot, because there's so much competition more than ever today. It's how do you stand out when the world is noise, just noise. The moment you wake up, it's just noise all the time. Pay attention to me. So a lot of it is how do we stand out in that way, which is a hard one because there's no magic answer. Like it, comes down to what you're actually doing. A lot of it has to do with more cost of goods inflation, depending where you go. Not everywhere, but more here or Europe, certainly. A lot of it has to do with culture of the younger generation, the Gen Z or what?
Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the betas are coming.
I mean, when you open a restaurant, you have a stable of young people that come in because that's what makes you need people that have energy and have enthusiasm, right? So you're employing a lot of people in their 20s. Well, when I was in my 20s and today, the people in their 20s is very different. The mindset, the work ethic, all of it, the whole thing. And that's something which is not global. It's the first question I get asked, whether I am in the Middle East or Asia or wherever I go, is, so America, do you have these? I'm like, oh yeah, same. And so it's social media and the ease of pressing a button and having everything come to you. I'm not having to remember who actually worked for anything. I'll be honest. It makes it easier when it just comes to you. That, I think, is a huge one, which technology goes hand in hand with. So that is more the questions of like, how do we deal with this? Because you still need to produce something, right? And you need people in.
Right.
If you think about the nature of being a chef, all the technology in the world, that's marvelous. Think about the nuts and bolts, the basics. You physically have to go to a physical building, into a kitchen, which has physical heat, freezing, cold, sharp knives, to physically do all these things, which haven't changed in millennia, right? Like human beings, you burn something, you wash something, you cut something. You don't just jump on, a cow and start eating it. You have to. So certain things like technology can take us so far, but there's a human aspect that hasn't changed that much. 100 years ago, there was shovel coal into an oven. Fine. Thank God we've progressed since then. But what you do with that still comes from here and the experience that you have here. A lot of other professions are not like that anymore because technology has changed it dramatically. So if you think about that, it's one of those professions where as much as the world changes, I'm talking more my line, multi-Michelin, where you have to go there. You're not going to have an army of robots doing what I do in the near future. No chance. It just doesn't work that way. So that's the part which is the hard part to try and explain to someone. Like, well, why not? I look around me and this is the world. I'm like, yes, it is. But certain things, you make a nice bottle of wine. You go to France, you have a Burgundy wine or a Bordeaux wine. Yes, they might use technology, but it's still the vintner or the craftsperson, or whatever you would like to call it, that has the skill to take that year, that weather, that grape, and produce something which is encapsulated as a moment in time in that bottle. That hasn't changed. Think about it. The core of what it is goes back quite honestly, like thousands of years. So that's something which I think is forgotten, or not forgotten, but it's not focused on. And the balancing part of it is very important. You use these tools to help you, to make you better, but they should never replace you, because technology does fail. The human aspect, the human intuition is the most complex thing in the world. What we have in here can't be replicated at this particular time. We can synthesize it, but for what we do, the knowing without knowing, that sixth sense of when somebody comes to you in a restaurant and they have a dream of what they're going to be experienced, and I have to deliver that dream to them, but I don't know exactly, and they don't know exactly, and it's finding that balance, creative balance, to create something that will store in here, in the hard drive, so to speak, that will never leave them.
Yes.
And a lot of this comes from when we're kids. We remember things, flavors, tastes, etc. But experiences like that, that's the important part. And a lot of people that I go around the world and I talk to, they ask this in maybe not quite the way I'm doing it, but this way. So how can I do this, get that end result with the technology? And there is no easy answer. No one can tell you, do this, this, and this. There are the business aspects, which are different, and that's okay, fine.
Right.
But the bigger picture, I guess, is what you're asking. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to quantify, I think. Yes, you make sure your costs are great. Yes, you make sure you market correctly and all that you would normally do. And even then, there's still no guarantee, or not that there isn't. There just isn't. So, yeah, that's what I see more these days, because there's more competition these days. It's easier to jump on a flight and fly anywhere. Look at what someone's doing, where the younger people now have more money in their pockets than they did 25 years ago, where if you went to a 2 or 3 star place, you wouldn't see generally 20-year-olds eating that, just because it wasn't the thing. Today, it's a little different. So you have to adapt. You've got to market different. You have to adapt to the mind of that. That's fine. That's normal. But there's also that, like I said, that it's hard to put into words, that sixth sense thing, but how do you keep that? Which is very challenging. Very challenging, yeah.
Yes. And it's so hard in a world where everything is expected to be quantified now. You know, folks who might be listening to this are thinking about starting a business of their own. And if you're thinking about outside investors, all they care about is the bottom line. Whereas it's very hard for you to say, quantify an artistic process or inspiration, yes, or what makes you really stand out, like you said, in a world of noise. So I appreciate your perspective on this, of figuring out how the heck do we balance this, as well as we see generation after generation, essentially culture clashes that are happening from the next age and how it's going to come into play.
Every generation's different. You take some good, some bad. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Definitely. I appreciate your perspective on the industry so much. Thank you, Paul. I'll ask you a last few questions here. You've had such a career so far. What would you say that you're most proud of? And what do you see for the future? What do you think is next on your journey here?
What I take great solace in is when I see young people that work for me, with me, and then I see them go on off and make their own statement in opening their own restaurants. And I find that very, like seeing your kids go off into the world and make it their own. So I take a lot of joy. I would say joy more than pride, I think is the right word, of seeing that, because I'm like, well, then I guess I've done my job correctly because they've gone off and become successful. So I do enjoy that, seeing the, passing the baton, so to speak. For me, yeah, I mean, I'm always doing a lot of projects and things. So I think, I'll probably open up another restaurant in New York, I would say. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but yeah, I will. Let's just say,
Something's
let's just
coming.
say, there's demand and people enjoy a statement when it comes to food or like music, or a song you can keep listening to. People like that. So maybe it is time to open up another beautiful experience to have the younger generation open their minds and their palates and their passion and their hearts to what we do, which is very important, to capture the mind of gastronomy and elegance and the beauty of what food is. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I think, we'll see. Right? I'm cagey when it comes to stuff like that because, I just don't talk about that, but we'll see. Yeah.
Understood. Well, I can't wait to see what it is. And I know plenty of folks listening or watching this will be excited too. If you could choose one piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, whether it's in the culinary space or any industry, what would you tell someone?
I would say never forget where you come from and who you are. Right? This world today is far more homogenized than it's ever been. You travel to every major city in the world. I'm not going to say they're all the same, but there's a lot of stuff which is the same. Right? Social media makes the world very small because you can see, and it can create groupthink more than ever. And I think having your own voice, I don't mean echoing what others are going, but truly having a perspective and your own voice is very important because that's what moves things forward. Not trying to shout with everyone else, but actually taking a moment and being who you are, not what the world wants you to be. I think that's a very important thing, especially with food. And obviously, as a chef, it's very easily to influence. And that's nothing new. But today, yeah, definitely that would be one thing that I think is quite important. Yeah.
I think that's a very good piece of advice. And like you said, you don't realize how much it will make you stand out just being yourself.
Well, I think in the short term, it's hard to do, but when you go the long run, then you realize it because you have to do it to know it, obviously. So yeah.
Love it. Well, Paul, here we are at, as folks say, the world's best and hardest question. A little reminder for folks that this is called The Perfect Bite, not just because it's a perfect bite of the folks we talk to across the food industry, but also because we each have our own perfect bites, a moment, a memory, a recipe. Maybe it's just a taco on the beach on vacation that you had one time, but something that you ate that will never leave you. So, Paul, what is your perfect bite?
That's a hard question.
It's...
Yeah.
The word demonic has been used about this question.
As with everything in life, there are many, right? I would say one of the perfect bites that I've had in my life would be when I went to work in Paris. The culture difference there from London to Paris was quite different. French, like gastronomy, a bakery, a patisserie on every street. And can I swear? Is that okay?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
Loved it. Oh my God. No, I don't know, the smell of bread. And for me, one of the perfect bite was I started very early in the morning, again, because, we started, 6:00 in the morning. So on the way there was the smell. I used to live not far from the original Eric Cayzer, the very famous French Maison Cayzer, very famous baker. His first restaurant, his first bakery in Paris. And I used to go past it, and they used to have baguette, like baby baguette de monde, which is
like a little baby. Yeah.
And the smell, and I remember the first time I had one, it was like hot, but it was perfect. The crust, like everything, how you would define a perfect baguette. It's the most simple thing, but the best things are when they're done perfectly. And I remember breaking into that and eating it and just going, I've had baguette, but not like, the water was different, the flour was slightly different. So, it makes a difference. And that was one of the times in my life where I was like, I'm in the right place at the right time. And I was 19, so I didn't have a huge amount of life experience, but it made a big impact on me. Yeah, sure.
I love that. I mean, just the perfect Parisian baguette to kick off a long career just loving food.
Simplicity is always the most
simple.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, just I respect, obviously, I know now, but the years, decades it takes to master the craft of anything. But to get that perfect bite, the work and the experience that went in to make that one baguette. Because you didn't just make a bread dough and go there. It takes so much time. And yeah, so I respect that craft and the dedication to get it to that level. So yeah. I mean, I think it's something very special. Yeah, very special. Yeah, but there are obviously more, but that particular one was, definitely reminded me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Paul, thank you so much for your time today. This has been such a pleasure. Can you let folks know where they can find you? So websites, social accounts, any venues that we can visit your work?
I think the easiest way to say hello would be, well, there's a website, www.paulliebrandt.com, my name. And then obviously Instagram is an easy one, at Paul Liebrandt, which is an easy one because everybody has a phone with Instagram on it. So I would say probably those two. Here in Bangkok and Thailand, we have 2 restaurants there, and so anyway, but yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it. Yeah.
And again, thank you for being just here and so accessible. It was such a joy.
My pleasure.
And
thank you.
everyone, thank you so much for listening in. Once again, this was The Perfect Bite, and this was Paul Liebrandt's Perfect Bite.
Thanks for tuning in to The Perfect Bite today. You can listen to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Thanks in advance for subscribing, rating, and reviewing. You can follow The Perfect Bite on social media @PerfectBitePod. Now go get something good to eat.